Let's be real. You've probably fantasized about being able to learn anything instantly. Just snap your fingers and boom, it's in your head. Maybe you wanted to learn how to do a backflip to impress your classmates or catch the eye of your sixth grade crush. Or perhaps you dreamed of mastering the guitar, piano, or some random skill like running faster, jumping higher, or even nailing that viral dance from 2016. Basically, anything to become that cool, respected person everyone admires. Now that we're older, teenagers or almost adults, our learning goals might have shifted. These days, we're more focused on things that will benefit us in the long run. Skills tied to business, languages, tech, or sports. The problem? Most of us are pretty bad at learning efficiently, but it's not entirely our fault. School taught us to memorize facts for tests and then forget them right after. But memorizing isn't learning. Real learning is about understanding, applying, and internalizing information so deeply that it becomes part of who you are. Think about the last time you tried to learn something new. Maybe it was a language, a musical instrument, or a skill like coding. What did you do? Chances are you crammed or binge-watched tutorials only to forget everything later. Why? Because most of us focus on consuming, reading, watching, listening, instead of creating, practicing, or teaching. It's like trying to learn how to swim by reading a book about it. You might understand the theory, but as soon as you hit the water, you'll sink. Learning is a hands-on activity. You've got to dive in and get messy. Before we go further, let's clear something up. Not everything is equally important. The 80-20 rule, or Pareto principle, says that 20% of your effort leads to 80% of your results. This means you should focus on the key ideas that deliver the biggest payoff. Want to learn a language? Don't memorize 10,000 words. Learn the top 1,000. They make up 80% of everyday conversation. Want to play guitar? Master the basic chords before tackling complex solos. Once you've got the basics down, everything else becomes easier. One technique to master the basics faster is active recall. Instead of passively reviewing information, actively test yourself. This isn't a new concept, but it's incredibly effective, especially for exams. For example, if you're studying history, don't reread the same paragraph about World War II 10 times. Close the book and try to recall what you just read. This forces your brain to work harder, strengthening your memory. Think of it like lifting weights for your brain. Staring at dumbbells won't make you stronger. You've got to lift them. But don't overload your brain. Cramming might feel productive in the moment, but it's a short-term fix. The spacing effect, on the other hand, is a long-term strategy. This principle suggests that learning is more effective when spread out over time. Ideally, 30 to 60 minutes a day over a week. Here's why. Every time you revisit a topic, your brain has to retrieve it from memory. The more you do this, the stronger the connection becomes. It's like carving a path through a forest. At first, it's overgrown, but with each pass, it becomes clearer. Instead of studying for 6 hours straight, break it into 6 one-hour sessions over a week. Your brain and your sanity will thank you. But as I mentioned earlier, to learn effectively, you need to immerse yourself in the process. Remember the swimming analogy? It's especially relevant here. If you want to learn faster, you need practice. But not just any practice. Deliberate practice. Deliberate practice means focusing on what you're worst at, not just repeating what you already know. It's uncomfortable, but that's where growth happens. For example, if you're learning to draw, don't draw the same anime character 69 times. Instead, challenge yourself with hands, faces, or perspectives, whatever you find hardest. It'll be frustrating at first, but you'll improve much faster. Another underrated but highly effective way to learn faster is teaching others. I know it sounds counterintuitive. How can you explain something you don't fully understand? But here's the thing. When you teach, you have to organize your thoughts and explain concepts clearly. This deepens your understanding and exposes gaps in your knowledge. And if your student asks questions, you're forced to think critically and find answers. Of course, you don't need to force someone to listen to you for hours. Just record yourself explaining the topic as if you're making a YouTube video. Pretend thousands of people might watch it. This will push you to master the material. As the saying goes, you don't truly know something until you can explain it to a 5-year-old. Engaging multiple senses is another powerful way to deepen your understanding and make the material stick. Your brain loves variety. The more senses you involve, the better you'll retain information. For example, if you're learning Spanish, don't limit yourself to just reading words. Listen to native speakers, watch Spanish YouTube channels, documentaries, and so on. Then write down the words and say them out loud. The combination of visual, auditory, and kinesthetic input creates stronger neural connections. It's like building a house. The more materials you use, the sturdier it is. Well, most of the time. Learning doesn't have to be boring. In fact, the more fun you have, the faster you learn. Set small, achievable goals and reward yourself for completing them. Turn tasks into games or competitions. It might sound silly, but your brain literally thrives on dopamine. Every time you achieve something, even something small, your brain releases a dose of this pleasure hormone, motivating you to keep going. However, while apps can help with motivation, they can also lead to distractions. At the slightest loss of focus, you might switch to TikTok or YouTube. To maintain momentum, try turning off your phone's sound, closing unnecessary tabs, and creating an environment free of distractions. Multitasking might create the illusion of productivity, but it's honestly nonsense. Your brain can only focus on one task at a time. So instead of half reading a book while scrolling through Instagram, fully commit to one thing. Now let's talk about sleep and rest. They're just as important as learning itself. Your brain needs time to process and consolidate information, and the best way to do that is through sleep. During sleep, your brain organizes everything you've learned, strengthens connections, and discards unnecessary information. So if you're staying up all night trying to cram, you're actually harming yourself. Regular breaks during study sessions can also boost your productivity. Your brain, like your muscles, needs time to recover after intense effort. Speaking of which, let's talk about mindset. If you believe you're bad at learning, you'll likely struggle. But if you start thinking differently, believing that you can improve your skills through effort, you'll be surprised by what you can achieve. Instead of saying, I can't do this, try saying, I can't do this yet. That one little word makes a huge difference. It shifts your focus from failure to potential. And most importantly, enjoy the process. After all, learning isn't just about acquiring new skills. It's about your growth as a person. And honestly, it's pretty simple.